I wish I could say I'm as massive a Christopher Nolan fan as others. His most beloved films aren't necessarily on my wavelength, but I still adore some of his less celebrated films like Memento or The Prestige. My expectations going into the Odyssey weren't low per se, but as someone who already isn't the biggest fan of epic films or Christopher Nolan, I was hoping to simply walk out of the Odyssey having enjoyed it, while also not feeling its near 3-hour runtime. The first half hour was meeting all of my middling expectations. I thought the non-linear storytelling was working against the film rather than for it, and I felt like the film was focusing more on less important elements than the things I was more excited about. Never did I think that by the time the credits rolled, not only would I have a much stronger appreciation for the non-linear storytelling, but be absolutely dazzled, thinking that this might just be my favorite Nolan film in 2 decades. The Odyssey is based on the Odyssey, Homer's The Odyssey, the original Greek epic cataloging the journey that Odysseus, king of Ithaca, makes to return home. I read it in high school during my freshman year, and remembered the broad strokes of the story and its sequences before I watched this film. But I had no idea that Nolan would find such an interesting angle to tackle Odysseus and the subject material. That to me is the greatest strength of the Odyssey. Yes, all of the filmmaking is excellent, as expected, and we'll absolutely delve into that in just a little while. But the emotional hook that hides in between lines of dialogue and the non-linear storytelling is what makes this whole film come together and rise above other epics of the same ilk. The film doesn't even reveal this hook until it wants to, and once it does, it recontextualizes the whole movie in such an exciting and fascinating way. This through line not only improves the first half hour, but it makes the already wondrous third act even more thrilling and satisfying. I guarantee on a second watch, I'll have a stronger appreciation and love for the beginning of the film, even though I can still see some of its shortcomings. Nolan has the respect and budget to give any film the blockbuster treatment, and The Odyssey is no exception. You've got Hoyt van Hoytema as cinematographer, Ludwig Göransson as composer, and an all-star cast of Hollywood royalty bringing this film to life. I don't even think this is Hoytema or Göransson's finest work, but it's still really great. Even if all of the A-list stars can be a little distracting, each actor is still doing exceptional work. Matt Damon is an incredible leading man as Odysseus, bringing the duality of power and vulnerability when needed. Tom Holland does some really great work as Telemachus, and Robert Pattinson is just detestable as Antinous. Other cast highlights include John Leguizamo, Lupita Nyong'o, and Jon Bernthal in their minor roles. I wish I liked Anne Hathaway's performance more as Penelope, and again having a cast of almost only recognizable faces can take me out of this immersive world, but these are only minor gripes. I mentioned the score being good, but not great. The sound design is just unruly, like unbelievably so. Scenes of swords clashing against one another, or the many scenes of stormy seas, had our theater so loud I thought the speakers might explode. There's one scene with a monster, and the sound design was so atmospheric and chilling, it became an immediate highlight of the film. What most people are coming for, though, isn't just the brilliant filmmaking common from this team, but the movie's epic scale and set pieces. Everything in this film looks real and practical, and that fact alone is just astonishing. The moving parts to make this film look like this are mind-boggling, especially when you research the troubles they went to film this entire movie for 70mm IMAX. The boats are real, the costumes are real, the sets and locations are real. You could tell me the whirlpool or giants are real, and I wouldn't even doubt you. But all of these elements could look real, but that only matters if they deliver, and they absolutely do. Everything fits this version of the world so well. Again, Nolan is one of the only filmmakers to earn the kind of budget needed to pull a film like this off, and every penny feels well spent. All of the practical filmmaking puts you in the scenarios and set pieces, and while each one might have a different flair or style, they still fit into the world that he creates. A lot of the set pieces are horror sequences more than they are action sequences, with one pure horror scene that had me scratching my head with its practical elements. Each stop on the journey felt like one worth taking, as the massive novel had to be trimmed down to its 3-hour runtime for the film. The action set pieces are absolutely epic in scale and scope, whether it features full armies or the men on the ships fighting for their lives through the weather. I wish the hand-to-hand combat was filmed just a little bit better, but it's still totally fine and something most won't take issue with at all. The writing and narrative structure of the film is very smart as well. That non-linear storytelling Nolan is famous for works wonders here, not just for the emotion like I mentioned earlier, but for small callbacks and full circle moments that are immensely satisfying when pulled off. There really isn't any wasted screen time, and any screen time I thought was being wasted was actually something incredible waiting to be paid off. I would say to maybe brush up on the elements of the Odyssey before watching the film. I think even just looking at the cast and character names, or doing some small research on the islands the men explore, might be needed to fully understand the film on a first watch, as it sort of trusts the audience to know the story and narrative. So for some people, that non-linear storytelling might not totally work for them, and I could easily see some people being lost. I found the film's groove around the halfway mark, but it still feels like something worth mentioning. I've mentioned some minor nitpicks as well, and that's really the only negative aspect of the movie for me, just small things here and there with no glaring issues. Some other critiques worth mentioning are that I wish some of the costumes were different or more complex. A lot of the outfits look pretty basic, not in a bad way, but I would have loved some more interesting flair, especially for the non-human characters. I also wish the film was cut down even just a couple of minutes. There are no real pacing problems, and from my research online, others thought the film flew by, but I found it a little long in the tooth. There isn't much I could think of to cut out without doing some story retooling, but I still think it holds the movie back from feeling instantly rewatchable. Then finally, I wish some of the dialogue was better adjusted with the sound. It's a much larger problem in other Nolan movies, but some lines of dialogue I definitely just didn't hear. All of these problems tend to nag at me a little more than I'd like, but they really don't hurt the movie all that much. For those excited for the Odyssey, I'm happy to say this film absolutely delivers. It's the kind of movie that's exceptionally rare in Hollywood these days, and deserves to be seen in the largest theater you can reasonably get to. Don't let a lot of fake controversies and hate push you away from what will undoubtedly be heralded as one of Nolan's best. I think The Odyssey is a must-see film.